To how exciting the show is coming back actually to Toronto to popular demand. So how are you feeling about that?
Pretty good, really excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. We premiered the show in 2023 at the Shaw Festival in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and a lot of folks saw it, but a lot of folks didn't see it.
Yeah.
And everybody said, bring it to Toronto because we don't want to drive to Niagara. And so we brought it to Toronto.
Could you have ever imagined that this show would become so popular that it's still taking place and it's going to different cities?
It's what every theater maker just dreams of, that you make a show and it's going to tour forever and still be relevant and people want to see it. I mean, that's the dream. We're living the dream.
Just give them a little insight. Let's just say, like, what kind of experience are you going to have for them?
So we have part one, which is called Karma, and part two, which is called Dharma. And we really start from like the stories of the ancestors, Shantanu and Ganga in part one, all the way through to the famous game of dice that the Pandavas play at the end. Part one, you have a live band on stage. You have everything from the bansuri to tabla to electric guitar on stage that's playing alongside this amazing band of 6 people who's playing alongside the cast the entire time. There's all sorts of very playful storytelling styles. Dance, you see Odissi dance featured, Kathakali performance.
Is there a specific part of the show that is your favorite?
My favorite part to experience is the Gita. Like, it's beautiful. We've adapted it as a Sanskrit opera. Meher Pavri is the opera singer, who's a Canadian South Asian performer, and it's really, I mean, it's a conversation between a human and God. And so in that search for how do we tell the story in a way that can even touch that experience of divinity.
Welcome to Knock TV. I'm your host, Amin Dillon, and today we're talking about the upcoming show, Mahabharata. Joining me in this conversation, I've got Ravi Jain, director, and Miriam Fernandez, associate director. Well, hello, you two. How exciting. The show is coming back, actually, to Toronto to popular demand. So how are you feeling about that?
Pretty good, really excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. We premiered the show in 2023 at the Shaw Festival in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and a lot of folks saw it, but a lot of folks didn't see it.
Yeah.
And everybody said, bring it to Toronto because we don't want to drive to Niagara. And so we brought it to Toronto.
I was one of those people because I did see the poster.
Yeah.
But I was like, but it's Niagara, and I'm only here for the one day. And yeah, so thank you for listening to my
You're
thoughts
welcome.
and bringing the show to Toronto as well.
Yeah.
So it's very nice. But also, I got to give you props because this show has become so popular that it is going all over the globe. You've been able to have it in, I believe, London. You've been in Australia. You're going to be going to New York as well. So very exciting. Could you have ever imagined that this show would become so popular that it's still taking place and it's going to different cities?
No, wouldn't have imagined it. And it's what every theater maker just dreams of, that you make a show and it's going to tour forever and still be relevant and people want to see it. I mean, that's the dream. We're living the dream.
It really is, because again, you want to make it one of those shows that people can't get enough of, that you're just going to travel everywhere. You get to cross off your travel bucket list and bring this. I always say it's your baby, because I know the amount of hard work that goes into putting a show from scratch to producing it. So I'm sure you're feeling really, really good about that. Now let's talk about the audience. So for the folks that are going to make sure you don't miss these dates and come see the show for the very first time, just give them a little insight. Let's just say, like, what kind of experience are you going to have for them?
So the show is divided into 2 parts. It's a very long story. So we have part one, which is called Karma, and part two, which is called Dharma. And we really start from like the stories of the ancestors, Shantanu and Ganga in part one, all the way through to the famous game of dice that the Pandavas play at the end. And in that, in part one, you have a live band on stage. You have everything from the bansuri to tabla to electric guitar on stage that's playing alongside this amazing band of 6 people who's playing alongside the cast the entire time. There's all sorts of very playful storytelling styles. Dance, you see Odissi dance featured, Kathakali performance. In part one, it's like a real exciting feast for the senses, I would say. If you get out of part one, if you come on a day when we show both parts on the same day, there's an option to have a meal, which is called Kana and Kahani, which is a meal and a story. and you sit, you experience the story in a way that lots of South Asians experience the story, which is around a table with a bunch of food, with an auntie or an uncle who's helping to unpack the meaning of the story for you. So if you're lucky, you get a ticket to Kana, but those tickets sell very quickly, so I would suggest buying them quickly. And then you come back to the theater to see part 2, which is Dharma, and we pick up at the end of the Pandavas' 13 years of exile, and it follows all the way through to the Yudhishthira and the Pandavas going to heaven. And so that takes us through negotiations, the war, the Bhagavad Gita, which we've adapted as a Sanskrit opera. There's video projections, there's all sorts of technology in part 2. I would say like it's hard to describe, but it's like a real feast for the senses. So it's something to be experienced.
I love that you're explaining like that, because it really is like you're not going to get bored. You're not going to be like, you know what, you're going to be like constantly just like the story, like you can't, I'm sure people are not going to even get up to like, you know, freshen up because they just don't want to miss anything. So it is such a good show, and that is why it's so popular. Let's actually talk about for you two personally. I know there's a lot of emotional connection, but is there a specific part of the show that is your favorite?
I keep saying my favorite part to experience is the Gita. Like it's beautiful. We've adapted it as a Sanskrit opera. Meher Pavri is the opera singer, who's a Canadian South Asian performer, and it's like it's really, I mean, it's a conversation between a human and God, and so in that search for how do we tell the story in a way that can even touch that experience of divinity, what would give us that opportunity? And opera was the kind of the route that we chose. And so it feels like a spiritual experience to experience those words in Sanskrit being sung. There's also a beautiful projection design. Like, I don't want to give away too much, but to me, it's a part of the show that kind of takes my breath away every time.
It sounds breathtaking. What about for you, Ravi?
Yeah, I think definitely Gita. I would say too, in part 1, there's it's a section where the Pandavas are birthed and they're born of gods, and the way that we depict it is Alora Patnaik is an Odissi dancer, and she dances it with the band and the music, and it's just so beautiful, and the music is amazing, and you can actually understand the story. A lot of people, I think, can be intimidated from classical Indian dance because it seems so foreign, but the way we do it, you really understand what's happening, and it's really sweet, and so it's one that every time I kind of go like, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've seen the show now. You probably can't even count how many times. So does it always feel like it's like the first time that you saw it? Is that experience still, you're just like finding yourself so like, this show is amazing? I mean, of course we're biased because you're part of it, but does it always bring you back to that first time when you saw the play completed?
Well, I'm in the show, so I'm not watching it. So it feels very different, but what feels really different actually is the audiences every time. What's been amazing, as you said, we premiered the show in Niagara, we've toured it to London, we have brought it to Australia now. What feels really different is every audience, depending on where you are in the world and what time in the world we're in, is responding to something different in the story. So for example, the Australians, we start with the story actually of the burning of the Kandava forest. And so the Australian experience of forest fires and the destruction of the planet is very close to them. And so they're responding to that, where depending on where we are in the world, people are responding to different things. So that's been, it feels very different every night with whatever audience we're speaking to.
Yeah, I can imagine. So we've been to a couple places now, of course, Toronto. This is the big deal because, again, we don't know how often you're going to bring the show here. I have a feeling you're going to be very busy in this year, but is there like a dream city, a dream venue that you are just really hoping to bring the show to?
You know, honestly, I think we've done them. Definitely the London Barbican, the first stop was a dream spot, and the place where we're going to in New York is going to be another dream spot. And you know, and Canadian Stage is a really important, you know, meaningful venue for us because it's represents Canada, right? It's you know, in the biggest city of Toronto, it's called Canadian Stage, and to do this story there means a lot, not only to us but to a lot of people in the arts and communities of people who've been wanting to see this told at this size and scale.
And that's why it's also very special because not only do you have a lot of Canadian talent that's part of this show, but then again, I guess as a Canadian audience, I just feel like we want to see something that's our own, right? So this is a Canadian production, Canadian talent, Canadian producers. You know, it's just we're all about supporting our own right now, and I love this patriotism that we're seeing, and I think we should continue it because we have such amazing talent here and we need to support and promote. So let's make sure people don't miss out on the Toronto dates. Can we plug the dates and how they can get tickets?
Yeah, so it's April 8th to the 27th, canadianstage.com, and you go there and get tickets, and we can't wait to see people there.
Amazing. And then we're going to take it to Ottawa. Very exciting. So let's talk about the Ottawa show.
So in Ottawa, we're going to be at the National Arts Centre. What are our dates? 8th to 24th?
No, 13th to the 24th.
Thank you. Ottawa, the 13th, May 13th to 24th at the National Arts Centre, which is an amazing opportunity to bring the show to our nation's capital. And then after that, we'll be going to New York City to a not yet announced location.
Very exciting. So there we go. We've got Toronto, and I say, why not just take the road trip and go to Ottawa and see the show there, right? It'll be a little bit of a different vibe, right? You're in the nation's capital, but just keep supporting the show. Make sure you don't miss it this time around. And if they want to find out information, again, let's plug the website.
Canadianstage.com.
So Miriam, you're bringing the show to Ottawa for the very first time.
Really excited, yeah.
Yeah, so let's make sure people feel invited.
Yes, so please come. We're coming really soon to Ottawa. We'll be at the National Arts Centre from May 13th to 24th. It's a short stint, so please get your tickets soon because it's going to sell out.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Make sure to see it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing a little bit about it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next time. I'm your host, Amin Dillon, signing off.